Hello and welcome to Tank and AFV News. My name's Tom. I'm the host here. Today we got a short little news story. This is about tanks and entertainment. Variety magazine and some other news sources are reporting that a new movie about tanks might be in the work called The Liberators. Now, this movie is reported to be about the 761st Tank Battalion, which is a U.S. Independent tank battalion during World War II, well known for being one of the three African American tank units that fought in the war. So now the 761st is definitely the most well-known of the three. It's the one that had the most impressive combat record. And there's been numerous books and film documentaries made over the years. This upcoming one would be a major motion picture. Apparently, it's being reported that the producer of it is Michael B. Jordan, played the villain in the recent Black Panther film. Certainly with the success of that film, the name Black Panther, obviously there's probably a lot of interest in Hollywood about a film about a World War II black tank battalion whose name was the Black Panthers. Now, like I said, though, obviously the film's going to be called Liberators. Probably calling it the Black Panthers would be a little too confusing for the superhero film. But that's the news on that. Just to talk a little bit about the 761st. This unit, like I said, is the most decorated. They ended up, getting a belated presidential unit citation. I think Carter awarded that way long after the war. They had at least one Medal of Honor within their personnel winner, 11 Silver Stars, and 300 Purple Hearts. So an impressive record. They fought with Patton's Third Army in Europe, particularly in the Battle of the Bulge, is sort of when a lot of the awards were given out for acts of valor. Now, there were two other units, obviously, which don't get as much attention. There was the 758th Battalion, which served in Italy, and also in Europe there was the 784th. But the 761st is the one that has gotten the lion's share of, should I say Panther's share, of the attention. And there's been several books written out over the years. Now, these units they were all black enlisted personnel. Most of the officers were white. One of the white officers, and the first ones to write a book, was a guy named David Williams. The original version of the book, from what I've been able to piece together, there's not much written about this. The original version of the book was published under the title Eleanor Roosevelt's N-Words. Can't really say the title. And the reason he chose that was that was the derogatory term that people called the unit. And the tie-in with Eleanor Roosevelt, she was one of the the champion in Washington of using black soldiers in combat, and there was a lot of resistance. And in fact, these units spent like over 2 years stateside training before they finally got shipped over. And so that was the original title, and he didn't mean that in a derogatory sense. The author of the book, he was very insistent the original version of the book be called that, because he's like, this is what people were calling these men that I was commanding, who I had utmost respect for, and just to sort of illustrate how much racism they faced. Now, this later version, which is called Hit Hard, I'm assuming is the same book. I don't have a copy of the original title to compare, but it was, I can't imagine he wrote two books on the exact same topic. So I'm assuming that this was later republished. I don't even remember these old Bantam War books as Hit Hard, obviously a much less controversial title from a sales standpoint. Now, probably most well-known book on the topic, if you walk into a store, is called Brothers in Arms, this book right here. And the author is indeed Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, the famous basketball player, and Anthony Walton. I don't know how much of the book's actually written by Mr. Walton, how much is written by Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, but still, got to give him credit. That's pretty cool for, a guy he doesn't have to write a book about anything. I mean, I'm sure he's got plenty of money, but thought this was an interesting story and wanted to put his name on it and get that out there. And it's a fun book. It's a good read. Like all these books, there's a few little like technical things that you're like, no, that doesn't sound quite right, but it happens. There's been a couple other books written in the last 10, 15 years as well that I don't have copies of, so I can't really talk about them. But yeah, so there's at least 4 books that have been written in the last 30 years on that particular battalion. I think there might have been also a book that was published in like 1945, according to Wikipedia, right after the war. So yeah, hopefully that'll be a good movie. I personally, I had mixed feelings about Fury, so the last movie that came out about tanks. we'll see. Cross your fingers. It's hard to say. One thing I do find funny is I will bet you anything the marketing will sort of include this kind of language of, the forgotten story or never told before, all these kind of things. Because all the books seem to have that in the thing. And it's like, it's actually probably the most published about and recorded independent tank battalion ever. Because none of those independent tank battalions got any attention. I mean, if people wrote books, they almost always seem to focus on, the armored divisions, not these independent battalions that were attached to the various infantry and sort of didn't get nearly as much attention, other than, again, any chance I can get to promote Harry Eady's work, The Infantry's Armor, which he did an entire book just on the independent tank battalions. So this is a great resource and reference for any of that stuff. So for a lot of these units, this has really been about the only book that's been written about them. So, but they're an interesting story. And those independent tank battalions made up about half of the U.S. armored force during the war, and all the U.S. armor out in the Pacific. So it's definitely an important story. They made a huge contribution to the Allied victory. So yeah, that's all I really wanted to say. Hopefully that movie will move forward. There's been several attempts over the years to make a movie on this topic. In fact, there was, at least according to Wikipedia, there was at one point they were trying to do one based on Brothers at Arms, and Will Smith's name was thrown around, and Will Smith as tank commander. It'd be okay. Who knows? I don't know. I'm a little cynical about Hollywood. But hey, let's hope for the best, because there's really not that many great films about tanks. And probably later on I'll do an episode just about those. But for the meantime, we'll just cross our fingers and see what Hollywood comes up with. Well, if you enjoyed these videos, please do subscribe, comment, give us any feedback you want. Moving forward, I'm hoping as we get better equipment and experience, we'll move out of my little back room here in front of my bookshelf and actually get on location and look at some stuff up close. All right. Thank you, and we'll see you next time.